good to go. All right. We got my buddy Daniel Betts on. He's running for district attorney. He's the GOP nominee to replace Jose Garza. I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex.
Yeah, just get cut to the chase. How do you ensure that this is not a suicide mission?
Well, suicide mission. A lot of people have told me that running for office and losing is the best thing you can do for your career. I'm not intending to do that. I'm definitely intending to do this to win. So I don't see it as a suicide mission. I think that people would say that about running as a Republican in Travis County, and I get that. But I think that this year is unique. I think that this district attorney is unique, and the level of support or the lack thereof that he has of the population and the citizens, those people who are actually voting and sitting on juries, is unique. And I think he's uniquely vulnerable. I think that we've seen this week how Democrats, independents are all coming out and opposing him, finally saying, this has to stop. And we don't even know if he's going to survive in office until the election.
Yeah, that's very possible. But and we're going to get into that later. But, in the primary, Jeremy Silverstein, his challenger, got completely shellacked by Garza. And I just was wondering how are those numbers going to be any different in the general election with where we are?
Well, I think that there was a very, very small percentage of Austin voters who came out, a very small and polarized percentage that came out in the Democratic primary, and who ultimately did vote for Garza. I think it's going to be substantially different in the general election.
Well, with Trump on the ballot, yeah, everyone's definitely going to vote Republican in Travis County with Trump on the ballot. Absolutely. Yeah, Daniel.
Yeah, and I think straight ticket voting used to be much more of a thing. Now we don't have straight ticket voting, so people do have to go down ballot. Not everybody who votes Democrat is going to vote for Garza. I think that that's manifestly clear. And people who vote independent are going to be even more likely.
Yeah, but then Garza, sorry if I'm interrupting you, Garza's painting you as a MAGA Republican. The Statesman and the Chronicle and all the major news outlets in Austin are going to pretty much follow Garza's lead and repeat the same DNC talking points because that's the main source of funding.
Sure.
And especially since nobody is consuming mainstream it's not mainstream anymore. Nobody is consuming corporate media to the same level. The only way that they can actually get funding is through these large mega corporations and through political PACs. Giving them money possibly under the table through something else. They have no choice but to repeat these talking points just so that they can stay solvent. And despite the huge drop-off, a lot of people still consume these outlets and rely on them for news. And in Austin and in Travis County specifically, the people that consume these outlets make up a very large portion of the voting population. Despite the popularity of alternative media, right? It hasn't translated to voters in Travis County, and this is just a fact. And I hate having to say this, but just look at what happened in the primary. Elon Musk tweeted support for Jeremy. I mean, Joe Rogan would have possibly had him on. Rogan and Musk aren't happy with with how criminal justice is being implemented. Along with a whole slew of other things in Austin. These guys have very big voices. These guys exude a lot of influence, but it's not translating into the ballot box. And if we just rely on print media, you're just going to get a repeat of what happened in March.
Yeah, it's possible. I think we would like to run more of a grassroots campaign with a longer tail than Jeremy did. You talk about Elon Musk. I liked the attention that he drew to the race. That's what I thought at first. But I'm wondering if that drove turnout on the far left in the primary and contributed to those numbers. Because, he is deeply unpopular with the left because of his political pivot to the right in the last couple of years. So it's tough to say what the right formula will be.
Well, the right formula is the fact that what percentage of people in Austin actually vote?
We have around 890,000 voters. We're looking at maybe around 500,000, 400 to 500,000 in the general
How many
election.
people? Okay, and I don't know this offhand, but you're running for office, so you should know this. How many people voted? What percentage of Austin residents voted in 2020?
In 2020,
Yeah.
I don't have the number right off the top of my head. It was relatively high turnout.
What do you think the percentage was?
If I had to guess, I'd say 64%.
You think 60% of people voted?
Could be wrong.
Okay. In 2018, when I tried to be mayor of Austin, I remember this. I got 1% of the vote, and I got about 3,000 votes.
Okay.
So I'd say about 3 million people voted in Austin.
300,000.
300. Yes, 300,000. Sorry. Okay. 300,000 people probably voted in Austin.
I think
probably
that
about
tracks.
like a third. Yeah, about a little less than a third.
Yeah.
You're probably going to get a little bit more than 2018 and a little bit less than 2020.
I think so.
So I'd say probably about, let's say give or take, you got half the population in Austin is going to vote.
Correct.
Now, if you look at the demographics, Austin's what, like 70% Democrat?
I think around there. Or, yeah, I'd say it's less than that because there's independents. I'd say it's 20 to 25% Republican in Travis County. Maybe not Austin, Travis County.
I think the independents are probably going to choose you more than they will Garza.
And that's the hope, yeah.
I would assume. But even so, you have a 30% hurdle to overcome.
By the numbers, we need to get 34% of independents and Democrats in Travis County.
Yes, you need 34% of it. Well, probably of Democrats. You need a lot more of independents.
As a group, independents and Democrats, we need 34% of them total. As a group, we need
34% of independents and Democrats. So how are you going to communicate the message to get Democrats to vote, or people who have had a history of voting Democrat? How do you communicate that message at large, and how do you also reach because the undecided voters, I guarantee, are not happy with what's happening. I think a lot of the reason why half the population in Austin doesn't vote is due to political apathy and not caring and not being communicated to. How do you communicate to that 50% of the population that just doesn't feel like voting?
It's difficult. There has to be something to motivate them off the couch. Absolutely. I wish that people were educated about all the issues that I see that are causing the problems with the district attorney's office, and we could get them out based on that. But, people hear Garza. They hear the name. They know it. They have an association with him, and it's negative. And that's immensely useful here. Yeah.
Sorry if I'm interrupting. They also feel as though the associations are just created by, via right-wing MAGA talking points, or they also associate the opposition to Garza with people like Matt McCoyak. And Matt McCoyak, I like him. He's fine. Me and him get along okay. He doesn't have a good reputation in Austin. He's not a likable character. People don't like him.
Okay.
You see how, he's not talking shit about him, even though it sounds like I kind of am a little bit, but he's
polarizing for sure.
Well, his finger's also not really on the pulse very much in terms of how to communicate with people who live in Austin. You make tweets opposing Eric Snowden, right? In Austin. That's not going to get people to want to listen to you.
Yeah.
You spout neocon talking points regarding what's happening in the Middle East, and I'm Jewish, I'm pro-Israel, but neocon talking points about a foreign country is not going to get Austin residents to want to listen to you, or that it's not going to paint a good association with you. And if you're associated with that, then that could also hurt your campaign, and that's a hurdle that you got to figure out how to deal with.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I want to create a coalition of independents and Democrats. I am a Republican. I've always voted Republican. The ideals of the Republican Party that I, grew up believing that, I don't see them much in the Republican Party. So as a Republican, I feel obligated to step up to the plate and present another alternative viewpoint that sits within that tent. I think that a lot of people are fed up with Republicans. I intend to be a different type of Republican. I'm a Travis County Republican. It's a little different.
What's a Travis County Republican?
Well, I don't know. My wife's a socialist. So, I mean, there's that. I'm a criminal defense attorney. That's not a pretty normal Republican thing, or at least it hasn't been traditionally. I do represent undocumented immigrants.
Illegal aliens?
That's another way of putting it, but sure.
We should call people what they are, right? That's what it is.
But I'm talking to Travis County voters, and it's important to meet people where they are and find the points that you agree with, while staying true to yourself.
Okay, that's important. That's a good thing. How do you reach those voters? What are you doing to reach the Travis County voter that goes out on Rainy Street 4 nights a week and has a cushy check job where the crime statistics or the stories about the crime haven't yet matched up to their realities of being an Austin resident.
It's true. If people are able to keep their head in the sand, to stay out of downtown, to avoid the problems that we see with crime, drugs, and homelessness, then they may be comfortable. We have to make them uncomfortable with the reality of what's going on out there. So we are bringing the stories of victims who are not having their cases treated seriously, taken seriously by this district attorney, those low sentences for serious violent crimes that are happening. We have to educate people.
Can you give a specific example of those low sentences?
Sure. Like Kendrick Knatty, just a couple weeks ago, he shot and killed his girlfriend with witnesses in the face. I believe he shot her 3 times in the head and twice in the chest, killed her. So that's a murder, obviously. 5 to 99 or life is the punishment range. He tried to give her He tried to give him 5 years. Thankfully, Judge Perkins busted it. And prevented it. But there's a lot of them, it's been happening recently in a lot of the district courts. It used to be course where all the district judges would say, now have you checked in with the victim on this case? Did they approve of this plea bargain? And they'd kind of let that go, and then they're finding out after the fact, after the sentence is already done, when they're in allocution, where the victim gets up on the stand and says how they feel about the case, they're finding out that, they weren't on board with it. And there's a lot of instances like that recently. I don't have all the names, but I mean, it's all types. It's across the spectrum. The Byington murder, there's going to be a hearing on it on Friday. He's trying to go back and undo murder convictions that are valid. It's tough to keep track of all the attacks, but as much as we can.
What about that guy Colton something who wound up pleading insanity to obviously killing a couple people, and then he's going to spend 90 days in the hospital, and then that's kind of it?
I don't even know that one right off the top of my head.
I wish I remembered it. I'll probably send that to you later, but if you don't know it off the top of your head, you're not. It's going to be hard to say whether or not this is Garza's
and
role,
I want to
or
be
it was somebody
fair
else's,
always. Yeah.
I do know that he let a admitted pedophile out of jail on a $40 PR bond, and then he allowed that guy, and then that pedo wound up molesting 2 more kids afterwards, and then his accomplice got his charge reduced to a misdemeanor and only served 2 years in jail. They lured a 13-year-old girl into an apartment and gang raped her, saying they were going to go to a club, which is crazy too. Why are you taking a 13-year-old to a club anyway? That's kind of gross.
Sure, I guess
but
terrible.
The main guy just fled the country, and so there's still a warrant on him, out for his arrest. But those 2 other guys just got treated with kid gloves, being the scum of the earth with their crimes, and very few people know that that's what Garza did. I do think that raising awareness as to who this guy is letting off, it should swing some voters, but you also have to communicate that at a mass scale, which matches the reach and influence and probably surpasses the reach and influences of outlets like The Statesman and The Chronicle and KXAN and KVU.
I 100% agree. We've been getting donations from voters across Texas and frankly across the country who have seen this race. We need more donors. We need more people because when people donate money, they talk about it more, but they also allow us to reach people with these mass media buys that we need to do before the election. The word needs to be gotten out there, and we're not done with our work yet. So
what are you allowed to do in terms of outreach? Are you allowed to potentially have a billboard up in downtown Austin stating what I said about Garza?
Absolutely.
How come there's no billboards up?
We don't have the funds yet. We want to time everything right. With a campaign like this, it's about hitting everything with the right momentum. It's about position and momentum.
In raising funds, do you have a specific list of goals as to what you want to use the funds for? Because perhaps a specific list of goals and a timeline for when you want to implement these goals could be a great way to get people to open their pocketbooks up and give you something.
Yeah,
nobody wants to just throw money down the drain right now.
Oh no, absolutely. And we're pinching every penny that we have, making sure that they go as far as possible, so that we can keep this going as long as possible. We do have a campaign plan for how to spend all of the. We got to flip 161,000 votes. That's what it comes down to, and that's a lot of door knocking. That's a lot of media buys. It's mostly door knocking. That's what it comes mostly down to, is getting volunteers, getting them the supplies.
Volunteers? You got to pay people. There's no volunteers.
No,
with inflation,
there's
with the
not
cost
no volunteers,
of living,
but there's fewer volunteers.
the people that can afford to volunteer for a GOP campaign are not going to be willing to do the legwork that it takes to get you into office.
Oh, it's going to cost a significant amount of money. You're absolutely right. It's not just volunteers.
Because who volunteers on campaigns? Retirees, older people who don't have to really necessarily worry about the effects of these newer policies. You know, you think those guys are going to want to go in the hood and talk about how Jose Garza is letting pedophiles off on PR bonds?
You know, it's going to be a mix. I think that our volunteers have skewed lower than you described.
You know what
certainly.
I mean, though?
I know what you mean. It's a difficult task. I mean, like, people are motivated based on their love for this community. It's been
They're also
difficult.
motivated by getting paid. And
True that.
especially with how unaffordable Austin's becoming, you have to pay these people, and you have to empty your pocketbook, and you have to actually provide people with, you know, to be a communist, a livable wage so they can help you.
Totally. $1.6 million is the figure that we have for the amount of block walking money that we need to spend.
Yes. And also getting the message out through social media. I was sending you,
Heck yes.
I have a video that I'm working on.
Yeah. I look forward to that one coming out. It was cool to look at.
Yeah. You know, or people going to council meetings. Like, look, there's a lot of stuff that could be done to, you know, get raise more awareness as to who this person is, so that, you know, we don't turn into a San Francisco, or we don't turn into a New York City, or we don't turn into a Chicago. Like,
or Detroit.
New York is bedlam right now. Even like the pro Hamas protests, and it's not. I'm not calling it like I'm not conflating like supporting Palestinians' right to live peacefully, you know, with pro Hamas protests. Like, these are like legit pro Hamas protests. You have people walking around chanting "Death to America," you know, potentially repeating 2020 all over again in the middle of New York City. You don't want that to be a fixture in Austin. The only reason that's not a fixture in Austin is because you have a very conservative governor and legislative body that is kind of serving as a check against this. That might not last forever. You know, you have talks about turning Austin into a capital district with just how everything's being flouted. Nobody wants that. Okay?
I think so.
No one wants that. And DAs like Garza are just going to bring Austin closer and closer to just becoming a capital district, which will just take away everybody's autonomy here, and then you'll just be in total purview and control of the state. No one wants it. I think people who are left-leaning need to understand the threat that Garza poses in terms of that happening.
It's something I hadn't even really considered, but yeah, I think you're right. I think local control is important regardless of your politics. All politics is local, for sure.
Do you have you ever seen videos of like the Walgreens and the Targets in California?
I have seen some of them, yes. The ones that they're shutting down for the shoplifting, looting, all that stuff.
Not shutting down. Everything's bolted. You need to get an attendee to unlock the milk or the eggs or the clothing.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
And those costs get passed on to us too.
They get passed on to you. It also creates an apparatus for mass surveillance.
That's true as well.
And it creates more authoritarianism, and you know, it lays down the foundation even more so for a police state and gets people to voluntarily consent to that. People in Austin still need to wake up to the dangers that this is going to pose if you allow prosecutors like Garza another 4 years in Austin. That's reasonable. That hits both sides of the aisle. That's got to be communicated a lot better than just like spouting right-wing talking points.
Oh, I agree. I hope I never am spouting right-wing talking points.
Well, I don't really hear you saying much of anything because you've been very quiet. You're relatively quiet on Twitter.
Okay. I think maybe compared to you, I certainly can be. But I don't know. I like try to take the news as it comes. I like to try to be even-keeled. I don't want to, be out there like Elon Musk or Donald Trump at the far end. But you're right. I mean, like, eyeballs are eyeballs, and we do need to get more eyeballs out there.
You should repost or like or share things that are happening and offer your solutions as the DA.
All right. Fair enough.
Like, offer a middle-of-the-road solution. Like, do you think people should be arrested for smoking weed?
It's a tough question. It's a really tough question. Because I think that the vast majority of people in Austin, myself included, don't think that it should be illegal.
Yes.
But it is against the law, which poses a real problem for a district attorney. I think, I go back to jury sentencing always on a case like this. If, I've tried cases, possession of marijuana cases, or at least I've tried to as a defense attorney. And what always comes up is the citizens of Travis County can't sit on a jury because they can't enforce the punishment for
I
it.
would never convict a guy for smoking weed.
Hell yeah.
That's crazy.
No, I couldn't sit on that jury either. Like, even if it's less than 2 ounces, the smallest amount, that's 6 months minimum. I have to be able to consider that as a jury. And it just can't. So it's never going to be prosecuted, thankfully, because of the community. And I think
but then you have people like Ken Paxton that are, and there's a lot of good things he's done, right? Like in terms of fighting back against the mask mandates and the vaccine stuff.
Sure.
And doing his best under the set of circumstances to create a secure border. All that stuff is good. But when you're trying to like infringe on how Travis County handles weed cases, that goes that goes a little bit too far. And I also think that.
Well, just from a strategic point, too.
Yeah, well, it's a recipe for losing. It's very out of touch. But, criticism of Paxton aside, when you have a district attorney that gives domestic violence perpetrators 90-day jail sentences for beating the shit out of their girlfriends at knife point, and allows pedos out of jail with a $40 PR bond, you just provide ammo for guys like Paxton to come in and just take away Travis County's autonomy on everything, even the things that are good about Travis County.
For sure. Travis County is unique, quirky in all these different ways that if we didn't have local control, would just be totally lost. I don't think I'd want to live here anymore.
I wouldn't want to live here either if you had to have cops forcibly arresting guys for smoking weed.
Frankly.
I would not. I would think that the appeal, especially being a pedicab in Austin, this is a party town, the appeal of giving pedicab rides could also potentially go down as well.
I suppose so.
Yeah, if those measures get taken. But the problem is that when you're not willing to compromise, and people like Garza are not willing to compromise because they have very, very radical viewpoints, and the people funding them, the people that are campaigning for Garza, all share these radical viewpoints. Once you compromise on any of these things, he'll like, even if Garza is more moderate, the fact of the matter is you have full-blown extremists supporting him and are his loudest supporters. If he compromises at all, and he knows this, he'll lose this whatever support he has, and so now he's in a position where he cannot compromise, and then all of a sudden Austin becomes a capital district.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about police officers being prosecuted, that's a place where he can't compromise, where his supporters have pushed him in, the DSA has pushed him into that corner.
Fine, then don't compromise on that, but you should definitely not be letting pedophiles out of jail on a $40 PR bond.
Sure as hell. And that's because, what that comes down to is procedural due process and substantive due process. They didn't indict those cases. That's why those people had to be let out, is because they failed to do their job within the right timeline to get that case indicted and properly charged, and the judge is forced to let them out. That needs to change.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to why that is still a thing that's really concerning, and it should be something that it is addressed. Even if Garza were to say, hey man, our office made a mistake, and this is a mistake that will never happen again, and we don't support, we're not right-wing, we don't support MAGA extremism, and we do believe in restorative justice, but stuff like this actually undermines the case for restorative justice, and it'll put criminal justice reform into a really bad lens, and then, all of a sudden now you're going to get, now everybody's going to get overly sentenced for really stupid things as the pendulum swings the other way, and that is something that people need to be a lot more aware of. Me and Jeremy talked about this fully.
Yeah, or on the other side, with respect to cops, when you prosecute everything, try to prosecute everything, and you have a 0% conviction rate, well, police officers do, because they're human beings, they do mess up. They do commit crimes. And we have to be able to hold them accountable, and you undermine your ability to do that in the future when you are crying wolf all the time, all the time.
Agreed. And also, if Garza were the DA during COVID, he'd be fully prosecuting you for not wearing a mask inside of a restaurant. And so his idea
perhaps.
of like actual restorative justice and not punishing criminal justice reform, all of that is bullshit, because if he actually believed that, you would have supported, you would have been equally upset about how Canadian truckers were getting treated 2 years ago, and you weren't. So the fact that there's a clear double standard, it means that your ideas and your viewpoints about criminal justice are not even genuine viewpoints.
Yeah, if you support free speech, you have to support odious speech. You have to support speech that's problematic, speech that you don't like. It's never the stuff that you like. So absolutely, 100% agree.
I think in many of these cases, the chickens are coming home to roost in that aspect, because you see a lot of the Palestinian protesters in universities with how they're getting treated. They're getting thrown out of school. Schools are going to lose their funding. Chairs are now being forced to resign. Listen, you can't punish free speech. However, a lot of these people that are participating in these protests
there's a line.
They were the same people in many cases that wanted Joe Rogan thrown off the internet. They were the same people who wanted your social media accounts canceled for for being verbally against taking a COVID shot. These are the same people who think misgendering is a form of violence. These are the same people that were like probably the biggest proponent of hate speech laws. And well, guess what? The things that you advocate for are now being turned on you, and I hope that you learn a very valuable lesson and enjoy that this is that whenever you target free speech, the person that you wind up targeting is you. Just like that lady who went to a city council meeting in California, like she openly threatened the city council, right? Mm-hmm. And they charged her with like 18 counts and gave her $1 million bond. Crazy, right? Like that is definitely an abuse of power.
I agree.
Like this lady would have not given two shits. If it was a conservative parent at a school board meeting who got arrested too, she'd probably be cheering it on and clapping like a seal.
And it's really unfortunate. I mean, that's the type of tribalism that we have to push back against. And I wish that it weren't the case that we're pushing ourselves farther and farther away from each other in our local communities.
I think it's bad. It's really dangerous. It's not a good thing. How are you getting your message out? What are you doing?
Well, apparently tweeting very poorly.
Wow.
We're going to as many events
as constructive criticism. It's
better
to have people like me being hard on you versus I appreciate it a lot. It's better to have people like me being hard on you because if I'm like me being hard on you is only a small sliver of what you're going to take of what you're going to have to deal with when Chaz Moore and Chris Harris and the entire Austin Democratic Socialists are on your ass for the next 4 years. When you do the slightest thing that disagrees with them, you gotta there's gotta be a framework for how you're going to handle that.
No, 100%. And I appreciate your criticism. I was being self-deprecating. So I'm going to tweet better. We're getting out to as many events as we can as possible. Talking to donors. I'm still trying to engage as many of Jeremy's donors as possible. We're past the point of really talking with Republicans. We're trying to get out and talk to as many Democrats and independents as possible. We have to assume that Republicans are going to vote for me.
They're all voting for you, yes. Yeah.
So we got to get out and talk to those people who don't know Garza's name, who are comfortable and need to be made aware of the reality that's going on around them before it continues to collapse further.
I fully agree with that. I think that's a good thing. How's your media schedule looking?
Well, it depends. It's tough to get the Chronicle or the Statesman to talk to me.
Real news. That's
true.
How are you doing on media in terms of reaching the more alternative voices?
So I have some good relationships with reporters from other stations locally from around the country who help me get the word out occasionally with individual stories. We've got some the Austin Independent.
That guy's cool. That guy's pretty cool.
He is.
Yeah, he's fair.
I haven't talked to him much, but I actually became aware of him because there was a troll account that was pretending to be him on Twitter that I was engaging with, and then I reached out to him thinking I was talking to him. But I'm very Daryl Slusher, I think.
Yeah,
right?
that guy's cool. Yeah, I like that.
I'm very much.
I haven't met him, but
I
mean, he's a good reporter.
Yeah, no, and it's tough to find a good reporter these days. People who actually uphold journalistic integrity and tell the story as the facts tell it. It's nice.
It's a good thing. You can't complain. You cannot complain. What other news outlets? Because the Austin Independent doesn't have as big of a reach. It's not going to give you the reach you need to flip 160,000 people.
Sure. I talk a lot with the KXAN, with reporters at KXAN. I have some contacts with Fox.
Not going to help you. These people are all.
That's why I mentioned them second.
These people are all probably going to vote for you anyway. You're just speaking into an echo chamber.
Yeah, that's true. But local media is absolutely way more important than national media. That's something that I definitely recognize. I want to thank you for allowing me to be on your show.
I appreciate that. All 100 people that listen to this one.
I don't know about that. As far as journalism goes, you don't pull your punches, which I appreciate.
Well, I mean, I'm not a journalist. I'm just a human being asking basic questions. Figure out what's happening.
I have a degree in science, but that doesn't make me a scientist. It's when I apply the scientific method that I'm a scientist. And when you apply, say, the journalistic method, I think you're a journalist.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I just try to get the truth out and ask, share what I'm concerned with, and hopefully they get addressed and get the message out and expand minds.
Awesome.
That's the goal. How many other podcasts have you been hitting up?
I've been on Brad Swale's podcast.
Okay, that's not going to help you
so far. Okay.
I like him, but it's not. It's just going to get it's echo chamber. It might help you fundraise a little bit, but that's kind of it.
I wasn't on Twitter before the campaign, so I'm getting up to speed.
I like Brad. I'm not talking shit about Brad. I'm just saying.
I know.
It's about getting a larger audience.
Totally fair.
Rogan, you talking to anybody?
I've been trying to. I don't have that pull to get on there. I'm working on it. We'll see.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Do you how do you feel about Bitcoin and decentralized finance?
I like it as a strategy. I did liquidate my Bitcoin holdings when it hit 66 recently.
Oh, well, that's okay. Did you take a nice profit?
No, because I had gotten in similarly a couple years ago around a similar price point.
So you broke even?
Relatively broke even, which I was at this point happy about.
Sure.
But I didn't quite have the diamond hands to hold all the way to the moon. But yeah, Bitcoin. I can't say that I fully. I don't know. I'm a smart guy. I don't quite understand crypto.
Well, Bitcoin isn't crypto.
Okay.
And it's electronic money that basically I'm trying to give the basic elevator pitch, but it's produced by solving complex mathematical problems that require large amounts of electricity to produce.
I know all that.
To produce the coin, and every 4 years, the issuance of new coins that get produced per block get cut in half. And only 21 million can ever be mined. So there's a pre-programmed fixed supply. And if you have self-custody, nobody can freeze your funds or take your money away from you as long as you have access to your phrases.
Oh, yeah.
You become you separate money and state. Now,
I understand, and I do think ultimately that all wealth will accrete to crypto of some kind.
To hopefully Bitcoin, because you don't want central bank digital currencies.
I understand that, and I wouldn't consider that the same. But yes, I agree.
Yes, so that's important. I would recommend, you have to be creative. You got to be an outside the box thinker. Because if you just go follow the GOP path or the traditional politician path, you're just going to get smoked and obliterated. And
Washington Generals, yeah.
Yeah. Nobody wants to vote for nobody wants to root for the Generals. Nobody wants to give them money. Nobody's going to want to help the Washington Generals get a new training facility if they're not actually going to improve and beat the Globetrotters.
I agree.
Right. And so what I'm trying to say is that I think that you have to have an expanded, more creative approach as to how you're going to reach more people. I do think that Austin does have a very thriving Bitcoin community.
Okay, interesting.
I think going to some Bitcoin meetups.
Awesome.
The first Thursday of every month, they have this at the Bitcoin Commons, which is right at the Littlefield building, second floor, on Chain Capital. Really great company. I think you should go to these meetings, try to learn more about Bitcoin, and also say, hey man, I'm running for a DA. Most people who are Bitcoiners are
libertarian.
They're not down with what Garza's doing.
Right. No, I agree.
I think getting your voice out, showing that you're an alternative, showing why you are an alternative to Garza, explain the correlation between sound money and public safety, because there is a direct correlation between sound money and public safety.
Yeah.
It might help you get more people to know who you are. It might help you get on more podcasts, get on more shows.
Okay, great.
It might help you appeal to younger voters.
I'm definitely going to ask you some more details about that. I'll check that out.
I think that's one thing to maybe try. Do you do any martial arts? Did you wrestle at all when you were younger?
No, I don't. Why do you ask?
Jiu-jitsu is another great way to...
Okay. I play ultimate frisbee.
Oh, boy. All right. Okay.
So it's kind of like jiu-jitsu.
10th Planet is a really good gym in Austin.
Okay.
And it's very good not only because of the level of instruction and the quality of people that go there. And my house is an hour away, so I've been going to a spot in Dripping Springs. But I was going there for a while.
Gotcha.
Really good spot. Okay, I'm even wearing this shirt.
Oh, very cool.
So
I thought that was a GTA shirt. Actually.
Yeah, that's how cool it is, right? They have the best designs in the game. All right. 10th Planet, the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu system has a lot of people that do a lot of creative projects.
Okay.
Go there, learn, be a student, but also, hey man, I'm running for district attorney.
Okay.
You could get a lot of social media attention being a 10th Planet got me a lot of social media attention as a mayor candidate.
And I never would have expected things like that. That's interesting.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about what else. Obviously, block walking.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to pay people. You need media. Media is big. Billboards are big, and you got to not be afraid of Garza. A lot of these people that are running they're I hate to use the word, but they're called cuck-servatives.
Okay. I understand what you mean. I might not have used the word myself, but yeah, no, I understand that. I'm not here to lose. I'm not here to just put my name out there and go, oh, well, shucks, we did a good job. I think that there's a real opportunity here.
Anytime Garza does any sweetheart deal to a criminal, that people who vote Democrat would roll their eyes at and shake their heads in disgust, you need to be on that right away. And other people need to be on that right away.
I agree. Yeah.
And you need to explain what you would do if you were the DA. And you have to do it in a way, offer a punishment that's suitable to people that vote on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like to some extent,
issues, and you got to talk about issues that the average everyday person in Austin cares about, right? Like Garrett Foster. Only right wingers care about Garrett Foster.
Okay.
Even though it's a complicated subject, but you're not going to win votes talking about Garrett Foster.
Oh no, I agree.
But you will win votes talking about why we shouldn't allow pedophiles out of jail on a $40 PR bond.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wish people cared more about murders. But people don't, because people assume that murderers are bad people killing other bad people. But you're right. Child predators, people care about child predators, and we do need to bring that more to the fore. It's shocking that they're not protecting children with all this rhetoric that they have. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think that would be. I mean, I ride a tricycle for a living. I don't know anything. Okay, I'm just throwing things out there based on what I see and what I think is just obvious to me.
Yeah.
I think focusing a campaign on keeping children safe, and also being empathetic to homeowners who live near the greenbelts.
Yeah, I mean their property values are being destroyed. Their safety.
Well, yeah, people just need to feel like they're being listened to, right? Like, how mad would you be if you had to pay $10,000 a year in taxes, and you're living right next to a homeless encampment, and nobody's doing anything about the homeless encampment? How furious would you be?
And that's if you're not being physically.
And how many people are How many homeowners are in Austin that didn't vote? Right? Why are they not voting? They don't feel like they're being communicated to. They don't feel like anybody gives a shit about them.
Well, I mean, we're essentially a one-party county. They don't really have a choice.
You're a one-party county because people like Matt don't care more about going to cocktail parties and tweeting about foreign policy than they do about reaching everyday people and communicating everyday regular concerns. That's why, because we're not that woke, dude. I made a video, okay? Totally shitting on Matt. I don't care.
Sorry, Matt.
I'm going to hit him up and ask him to come back. We could talk about it, because I do actually enjoy talking with him.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm just all this is constructive.
He occupies a certain role.
Constructive
I understand,
criticism.
yeah.
Okay, I went to 6th Street and asked people on 6th Street how they feel about the economy. Okay?
All right.
And you know what the first thing they said to me was, without me saying anything? Yo, bring back Trump. Okay? And these were ghetto-ass black people. These weren't regular white Republican conservatives. These were hood black guys and hood Mexican guys that were saying, bring back Trump, without any prompting whatsoever. So when people say, oh, Austin's too liberal, it's too far gone, no, that's a lie. That's a total
completely
lie.
agree.
It's a cop-out. It's complete bullshit, and it's an excuse that's being used so that you don't actually have to do more than the bare minimum so that you could continue going to the cocktail party.
Yeah, and I think it seems to be clear that this election cycle, the stranglehold that the Democrats have held on black voters, especially black male voters, is going to be broken. I think that's the case. I think we're going to see expansions of Republican voting with Hispanics.
Yeah, only if you talk to the black people. If you don't talk to them, if you don't go out and do outreach, and if you don't go and be a part of the community and ask them questions and actually communicate.
Yeah.
Right? That's not going to happen. It's just going to be a talking point that will be forever regurgitated.
Suppose so. Yeah, I think you're right. We do need to get out there and do the work.
You got to talk to people. You got to go and talk to people and say, hey, man, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, you have to understand how people feel, who they are, before you can just tell them.
Hey, man, how do you feel about pedophiles? Well, do you know?
Yeah, right.
Hey, do you think domestic violence abusers should go to prison?
I mean,
yeah, these are ask very obvious questions, and then when they tell you the obvious answer, you explain to them how our DA is doing the opposite of what this obvious answer is.
I 100% agree.
And get it on film.
Well, that's good too.
And then get it on film and share it with everybody.
Well, you're doing that, and I really appreciate you doing that.
That's what I think is a very obvious step that I'm surprised more people aren't doing. It's so there.
Yeah, and it's tough. He plays these games with victims where he says that he's supporting victims, and then he relies on that just being the only thing out there. The victims have to, having been victimized originally and then having victimized by the system and by him, they have to come out again a third time and say, hey, I'm not one that you failed to serve, failed to protect, like Miss Dupuy is doing right now. I wish there were more like her. I'm very thankful for her.
How do you think this thing is going to go against Garza?
Man,
realistically, you're a lawyer. I want the actual truth about what to expect from the lens of reality.
100%. And so let me tell you the progression that I've gone through on this. So this petition, I saw it back in December. It's the same one that was filed by that guy who had the methamphetamine charge and it was disqualified as a result. When I first read it, I said, man, I wish they'd come up with some better allegations. I don't think this will stick. But then this judge, Dib Waldrop, he certified it, which basically, as far as I can read it, means that he's saying that if these allegations are substantiated in court, that it is a sufficient basis to remove him. So my opinion about it has changed significantly since the certification. I've seen, lawyers recently talk to jurors in district court cases, the same jurors that would be the jurors in this. And man, across the board, they have a negative opinion of Garza. It's not like they have no opinion, but it's something like 70 to 80% have a negative opinion at all. And that's to the jurors that he's going to be facing. I think he has a real shot at getting removed. And I think the real question right now, the only real question in my mind, is whether or not the Bell County District Attorney is actually going to take the case and forward. Because right now it'll be in an investigative stage. But if he decides to move forward and have a jury trial on it, honestly, I see it as at least a coin flip that Garza gets removed.
What do you think the likelihood of the Bell County DA taking the case?
I don't know.
He seems pretty conservative. I don't understand why he wouldn't.
I've heard that, and I've heard some people say that there's some, I don't know what the right adjective is, woke things going on in Bell County. I don't practice there much, so I can't claim to have a strong opinion on it one way or another. I think that there's a pretty good there's a pretty good chance that he takes it forward. I'd say greater than 50%. So
I actually will talk to Matt and ask him about this.
Yeah.
Matt, love you. Not, all this is out of love, and I'm just addressing legitimate concerns that I have because I think both of us want the same things. I think in Austin, and I'm addressing them. There's some other
things to talk about it too, and I think like Matt's playing strategically too. I think Save Austin Now, if I had to guess, has or had a petition ready to go that they were planning to file at some point. But this one happened first.
I don't think Save Austin Now should be doing any more petitions. They did great with the homeless, but the negative association will just ensure defeat at the ballot box no matter what anyway.
Well, I can't control them, thankfully. So
they should be offering guidance to help other people file petitions and do it very quietly. That's what I think a better approach is.
I understand that. I think that that's reasonable. People have knee-jerk, visceral reactions to specific letters associated with people, unfortunately, that I wish they didn't.
People have visceral reactions towards me now. It's kind of crazy.
I can't imagine why.
Why? I know. Wow. But I'm likable, though, So
I think so.
It changes the ballgame, right? When people are like, oh, that guy's kind of, I like this guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think likability is a big factor. Yeah, and you look like the Monopoly guy. Everybody loves the Monopoly guy.
That's what people have been telling me. I've just kind of decided to own it. Yeah,
you should lean into that, dude. The Monopoly guy is cool. I like the Monopoly guy.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think Garza's got the get out of jail free card, and I'll have to come up with one of my own.
Yeah, but you should definitely have be the Monopoly guy on your business cards on your. You should make it so that your Twitter avatar is the Monopoly guy.
All right. Yeah, I can lean into that more.
I think the Monopoly guy is cool. And that might get some more attention too and make more people want to talk to you. We got the Monopoly guy running against Garza.
Yeah, for sure.
Go.
As long as they understand that I'm not Mr. Moneybags just yet.
Well, forever.
We're working on it.
Or ever, right? Yeah.
Yeah, true that. Yes.
Yeah, but so you think it has a decent shot? Because Adam Lowy tweeted something. I forgot what he said, but I remember he said that it has almost no chance. It's just grandstanding and it's not going to work and nothing's going to happen. And then all it's going to do is just strengthen Garza's case in the general.
It's certainly possible. I mean, like, we look at what happened to Paxton. He was only strengthened by that impeachment.
Yeah.
And I think most people will see this in a similar lens, even if it isn't political.
Or like
he's going to paint
Trump,
it that way.
Like this Donald Trump trial, he said that it's no different than what the Democrats are doing to Donald Trump.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see him saying that. Yeah, I mean,
but then at the same time, you know what? Like, if you're going to engage lawfare, on a candidate, then you should expect it to be done to you. And the solution is just don't engage in lawfare at all.
Lawfare. I don't know that word, but I like it.
Yeah. You never heard the word the term lawfare?
I have not, but I obviously know what it means. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
obvious what it means. Yeah. So maybe like the lesson, the moral of the story is that we should just stop engaging in lawfare and just let regular people decide who they want representing them and not shame people for why they feel a certain way.
I think that's a really good idea. I wish we could get there without both sides having to use the weapon against each other before we realize that was the case. It seems like that's the trend in our politics, whether it's like getting rid of the filibuster or special counsels or one thing or another.
See, getting rid of the filibuster would be a disaster.
No, I agree. Yeah.
So what happens if Garza does get removed?
Good question. So that's probably why, in terms of strategy. So if Garza gets removed, Greg Abbott appoints his replacement. Who knows who it could be? I would certainly be making a big push for it to be me so that I could hit the ground running and try to start making some of these changes that we need to get the office working again.
Do you think Greg Abbott will do that?
Good question.
Because Greg Abbott also doesn't necessarily have his finger very much on the pulse and might get like some super right-wing person to be the Travis County DA, which is totally at odds with how people feel. And then we just get back to where we were and become super woke again.
I mean, that's going to be my argument, that you need to recognize that you need to find someone that everyone can live with, and that would be ideal. I don't know what the governor is going to do. I don't have a direct line to him. In law school, I was an intern for his campaign for a summer. That doesn't really get me very, very far. But we'll see. So he'll appoint somebody. The question that remains is whether or not the removal would bar Garza from being on the ballot in the general election and the timeline for printing ballots.
Imagine that. Imagine they remove him and then he just gets reelected again, and you just get totally smacked in the face and laughed at even worse.
So I think that's why, if there were other petitions, that they were waiting so that they could file it January 1st and then get an appointment from Abbott that lasts 4 years instead of 7 months. But I didn't file this lawsuit, and I couldn't, dictate how strategically this is going to go.
Could you imagine if he loses and just stays on the ballot and just gets reelected anyway? I mean, I'm sure there's some rules though, right? Like if that happens, if they get rid of a rogue prosecutor, then they just reelect the rogue prosecutor.
It's not in the statute. It's unclear from the statute. That's why we don't know what I think it's going to come down, because it's basically a case of first impression. It's the first time they've done it.
You know what?
I think it's going to come down to that judge.
Then this Bell County, this judge and this DA should just say, hey, we're still investigating, and keep the investigation going until January.
It could happen. I mean,
that's what they should do. Just keep the investigation going until January. Like, okay, well, if you win, then we'll just do the investigation in January.
And I mean, there's so many factors that could come into play. Like when ballots get printed, I want to say it's around September 1st. Like if he gets removed after, mail-in ballots get printed, absentee ballots get printed, I don't know that there's a chance for them to replace him on the ticket either. There are some scenarios where I'm the only person on the ticket come November. But it's a little bit difficult to predict right now. I don't want to get out over my skis other than
but it's a problem.
Yeah.
And another problem too is that like people like Garza will definitely weaponize the justice system against people who oppose them, and that is also going to cause a lot of other people to be scared of speaking out against Garza. And there's got to be a way to protect people so they can exercise their First Amendment rights.
I agree. Yeah. Protecting the constitutional rights is what I do as a defense attorney.
The problem too is that the GOP doesn't really have much, like the left or the Democrats. I hate the word, but the Democrats are much better at thinking long term and thinking multiple steps ahead. The GOP doesn't. They are very reactionary, and then because they're super reactionary, they just repeatedly lose, even though their voters feel as though they won. But these small victories just add up to more losses.
I'd say that that's true in some areas of the game. I think in the judicial appointments and the judicial side, I think that the Republicans have done a very good job in the last 15 years.
Okay, sure. But everything else, it's
a shit show.
It's a shit show. And I think I think this is a project to look into more thoroughly, because if this thing passes and he just winds up getting back on the ballot, what's the point of having this? Like, what was the point of this passing at all?
Yeah. It will greatly have the potential to have strengthened him, rather than you're going to take a shot at the king. You better not miss.
They got rid of this guy Justin Jones in Tennessee.
I was thinking about that case too.
He just got right back in office. They just reelected him anyway, so it didn't matter.
So it's an open question. It remains to be seen. I'm not holding my breath on a lot of aspects of it.
I think you should behave and act as though this is not. Do you think he should get removed? What do you think should happen? You're his opponent. What do you think? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I do think that he has done stuff that constitutes sufficient grounds for removal. I do agree. If I'm going to be the district attorney, I'd love to get elected outright, but that's not my. I'm not doing this for personal gain or anything like that. I would like to get in there and fix things because, I see on the front lines as a defense attorney the way that he's destroying that office's ability to continue to exist going forward. And that process needs to be arrested as soon as possible. It needs to be stopped. There are more things that I would allege beyond what has been alleged. But yeah, I think that there's plenty of grounds for his removal. And I think that it's possible I've never seen one of these lawsuits before. It's possible that in the course of the investigation, they'll come to allege other grounds as well. Certainly. There's been some document destruction that's been going on recently that I don't know if you've been hip to. There's a lot of problems, and there's more problems still coming out of there. His spending taxpayer funds on that private security detail after he was denied it by the commissioners. There's a lot of issues.
Yeah, I feel like those issues. Could you charge them? Like, are these actual criminal offenses that you could charge with an actual crime?
You could indict a ham sandwich. The statutes are so broad. You could charge people with a lot of stuff. I think a lot of this stuff does amount to criminal. It's the type of stuff that if I were to do it as a defense attorney or as a regular citizen, sure as shit I'd be charged.
Yeah. Using taxpayers' dollars for your own private security, and it's not coming out of your own pocket, that doesn't seem legal.
It's a campaign expense, too.
It doesn't seem like that much different than Trump paying off a porn star to be quiet about having sex with her.
It seems
kind of similar, right? Like, minus a few technicalities.
At least he paid with private funds with that. This is
public money. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just kind of hypothetically speculating. Like, you don't want anybody to go to prison or anything, but you just want to, you also want to be able to feel safe in your own city. And mainly, you want to be able to feel safe criticizing your people that you disagree with. And if you're worried that you have a DA that's going to weaponize the justice system against you, and he hasn't done any of that yet.
Yeah.
But other DAs like him have clearly done that. And so it is reasonable to assume that he would follow in those footsteps. There's got to be a way to assure the public that doesn't happen in Austin. And if you have a DA if you can't really get those assurances out, like having somebody new that will offer a fair portrayal of justice is not wrong, I don't think.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it's difficult because you want to say, hey, we're not going to go do those things that they've been doing, hiding evidence from grand juries, hiding evidence from exculpatory evidence from juries, destroying records, all these things that are at least ethical violations and things that you could or should lose your law license for. But then at the same time, we got to hold them accountable. I'm never going to be able to hold anyone from that office accountable, for obvious, bias reasons. But where we do find criminal violations in the files that we have access to, if I become district attorney, absolutely we'll refer those to special prosecutors. It needs to be done.
Sure, but while this election is going on, let's say you lose, the main goal is public safety. And balancing public safety with police accountability, not public safety. The main goal is to balance public safety with
police accountability is part of public safety.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. There was a couple more things I wanted to ask. I'm just trying to think about it because we're about to probably wrap up pretty soon.
Yeah, for sure.
It totally slipped my mind. Literally slipped my mind.
I hate it when that happens to me.
I hate it. It's annoying. I had this.
I'm ADHD, and I'll jump from one topic to another, and then I'll just go completely blank.
Worse. Oh yeah. Okay, I remember what I was going to say. How are you going to handle the nonprofits that go after you once you get in?
Well, I think
they're gonna go after you. They're going to be assholes.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think you have to take people at their word and accept their axioms. And if they say that they're interested in justice, if they say that they're interested in, Garza touts stuff like he's gone after wage theft. Wage theft is odious. Why wouldn't we prosecute wage theft? Like, if you guys care about wage theft and you have instances of wage theft, bring it to me. We'll absolutely prosecute those. I think that it shouldn't be a political office in the first place, so I won't engage in things that amount to political attacks or anything like that. But if people say that there's a problem and they bring it to me, I need to be more transparent than he was, because as a Republican, I can't afford to just sit back and expect to be reelected.
Yeah. And look, there's a couple good things he did. Like, not prosecuting low-level drug crimes is a good thing. Like, that is a good thing. Like, and
can I push back on that?
Possession, like low-level possession.
Yeah, but that leaves it on the books. And the longer we do that, I mean, like, what if it weren't me? What if Greg Abbott comes in and he appoints some, like you said, hardcore right? Like, the law is still there, and I know that he wouldn't have changed it, but
you're only appointing those people,
the legislature's the place where that law needs to change, and it sure as hell needs to change.
I know, but sometimes non-compliance is a great way to change bad laws. And for that type of issue, that is an issue where non-compliance, I think, is okay. And if there's one thing that I'll give Garza credit for, it's that. And I think it's okay to say, yeah, you know what? Not prosecuting low-level drug crimes is a good thing that he did, and we're going to keep that, but we're also going to, take these pedos off the street and prosecute violent criminals. Like, just be like, yeah, dude, you're not going to jail for smoking weed if I'm the DA. Make that really loud.
Low-level drug crimes, we're talking smoking weed, that's a misdemeanor. That's not a felony. I mean, you got pounds and pounds of marijuana. Okay, well, I don't really care about that either. But I do care about somebody who's got methamphetamine and fentanyl.
That's not a low-level drug crime.
For him it is. Yeah, that's the lowest level drug crime that at the felony level they deal with. Less than a gram is the state jail. Those are the ones that they're dumping.
Okay. You shouldn't be dumping possession, like meth and coke, large possession. Like, okay, that's fine. I mean, maybe like a little blow for personal use at the bar, maybe chill out on that, right? Don't throw people in jail for that. But you're walking around with bags, with pounds of blow. Jail,
it's
right?
Not even, I don't know. Like, yeah, cocaine is technically the second highest overdose drug but it's based on use too. But I think there are certain drugs where we owe it to those defendants to say, hey, you need some help, and we need to be like a little bit of a heavy to make sure that you're not going to die in the next 3 months. Like, there's real opportunities there to help people, and I don't think compassion is always saying, oh no, because like people's lives are on the line.
Compassion is just go to rehab if you have a ton of.
But if you're going to just dismiss the case, then I don't got the cred to say you need to go to rehab, because you're like, you're not going to prosecute me anyway. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. It's a tough line to balance.
So prosecute and offer rehab as part of the plea deal, and then there you go.
Oh yeah, but you gotta have the stick. You gotta have a big enough stick behind it, so that they know that you're going to follow through.
Yeah,
and he doesn't have the credibility.
He doesn't have the credibility to do any of that, and that is the problem. But the idea of not going to jail for smoking weed is a good thing.
100%.
I think that a lot of people in Travis County might get scared into thinking that electing you will cause them to have to go to jail. People are going to now start going to jail for marijuana possession. That is that is how it's going to get spin in the media. You just got to be able to get a handle on that and run and preemptively address this before the media goes after you for that. That's what I think. Like, and I think that's a big deal. I think a lot of people are still concerned about, like, hey man, I'm not trying to go to jail for weed, so I'm gonna let Garza, because they don't see the bigger picture. So I think one issue, just get ahead of that.
I need to get the word out. Yeah,
get ahead of that. Like, that's all I'm trying to say.
I think that legalization is absolutely what needs to happen. I'm a botanist. I'm a scientist. I love plants. I love growing plants. It's not just doesn't stop at cannabis. Like the things that we're preventing ourselves access to that can be very useful, that people have used for hundreds and thousands of years. It's crazy that we've come up with this prohibition scheme that just seems to be the norm. And anytime we hear about a new drug,
and the pharmaceutical companies all want you to wear masks and get vaccinated, and they are giving puberty blockers to your children. So when you speak out against legal weed, you're literally pro COVID tyranny.
There are all types of strange interests together in it. It's tough to like figure out exactly. You're like, oh, it'll be easy. Like I remember in 2012, I was like, yeah, by 2020 we'll have legalization, no problem. I remember talking with judges about it, and they were like, yeah, it's coming. And what the hell has happened? It's 2024, and you can still get arrested for smoking a joint.
Yeah, you gotta be that's the one thing that you should just not prosecute, in my opinion. The one thing you're like, yeah, dude, we're not. Look. You should stand up to the state.
I wish there were a way.
You gotta pick your battles as to what you stand up to the state on. But that is the one issue where you're like, hey man, we're not complying with this stupid rule, but we're not going to be a sanctuary city for transgender children, and we're going to prosecute murderers and rapists and pedophiles, and we got you on that fully, and we're probably going to do it more than what you want. But for that, we're not doing that. That's a bad idea, and we're still autonomous. We still have our autonomy.
I would like to not be able to enforce that law. 100% agree. The same law that's getting Garza potentially removed right now, they would absolutely use directly against me, even if it was hypocritical, just to get me out.
What, for weed?
Uh-huh.
The leftists would use it for weed.
Hell yes.
The progressive leftists would try to remove you. You think they would remove you from office because you just didn't want to prosecute weed crimes?
I do. It's political. It's all political. It doesn't have anything to do with the actual facts or like that we agree, both them and me, that I do. Maybe I'm being cynical, but we've got to figure out ways to. I mean, like, look, I've smoked plenty of weed in my life.
Yes,
you know.
I believe you.
But there have been times in my life when it hasn't been consistent with my best flourishing. So I think
agree
that
I agree. I actually agree with that fully, and I also think that some of the stuff that they're putting in the weed now is not necessarily the best, and it's not what it used to be. And
I mean, like, I'm a chemist, and all these different THCA, THCO, THCP, CV, all these stuff that we didn't have, when I was, growing up. It's tough. It's a tough environment. I got kids, and I don't know what I'm going to tell them.
Yeah, I think that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
But, considering how much poison there is in the food, like, why would I want to buy weed from a store anyway, considering the fact that it's probably going to be poison? There's probably be some poison in it anyway. But, like, hey, man, if you
I like to grow my own stuff when I can. I agree.
Yeah, if you got an organic, like, growing operation and you're, like, just doing it correctly without added chemicals or other things inside the drug, like, no, I think it's a vehicle from God, right? Like, so it depends on where you get certain things, and there should be a culture that fosters healthy eating and whatnot.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it should be legal, but it should be regulated. So that people don't. I mean, it's just like food's regulated. It's just like
the people who
alcohol's regulated. I know.
We're
getting
like,
I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but it's certainly not sending people to prison.
Yes,
for
yeah, and I think, but that's got to be clear, dude. You got to be clear on that than anything else. You got to be like, yo, dude, not arresting you for smoking weed, just putting that out there. Yeah. We really don't want our jails to be filled up with pot smokers.
It's dumb. It's just creating more criminals. It's turning people who were, what if caffeine were illegal? Would I prosecute that? I mean, it's just kind of crazy.
Good. I'm glad we're on the same page. You got to blast that shit out there, because you are not winning if they think that you will be prosecuting weed smokers. That is the most obvious thing.
I agree.
You will get wrecked if that does not become, like, very clear.
Yeah.
And you just sprinkle that in there while you talk about all the bad stuff.
I think. I mean, like, there's other ideas that I have in that regard. Like, there's this, not to get too in the weeds, but there's this Supreme Court case, Employment Division v. Smith, that Scalia penned in like 1991. That basically says that criminal law trumps religious freedom with respect to drugs and the drug war. I think it's a terrible decision. I think it needs to be undone. I would really like, if I become district attorney, I'd like to find a defendant who is willing to go to the mat on it and take it up so that we can have that relitigated in the context where they're being prosecuted, but they won't actually get hurt if it comes down to it. That's still, within the bounds of what an appellate court could decide. And I think that there's some good work that needs to be done in fixing our jurisprudence.
Okay.
You can definitely do from the side of the district attorney too.
Sure. Last question before we go, man. How are you going to handle, like, we talked a little bit about how you're going to handle the pressure from these people, right? Like, in 2020, you had hundreds of people showing up at Allison Alter's house, at Kathy Tovo's house, demanding that they defund APD.
Yeah.
And these are people who didn't think that this was a good idea, and they caved under pressure and did this thing that they were not really in support of. How are you going to handle hundreds of people being camped outside your house, protesting, harassing possibly your wife and kids? What are you like? Can you handle that kind of pressure? What are you going to do in the face of that kind of pressure when that happens? Because it will.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. I'm a defense attorney right now. I don't do defense work because it's easy. I do it because it presents a challenge.
Sure.
Most of my cases I'm supposed to lose. I'm supposed to lose this election. It's no different than anything I do normally. One of the reasons I'm running is Garza has made my job too easy. I don't like to have my wins handed to me. But each of those people who shows up at my house, they represent someone who I have the opportunity to convince. These are not my enemies. These are my constituents if I get elected, and I need to communicate with them. So I'm going to be there at town halls every month, rotating around the city, talking to people, allowing them to come talk to me. and give me, I've seen I've seen Garza walk away from you when you've tried to talk to him. I want to talk to those people. If you were coming up to me, I'd say like, look, I got to deal with this right now. But we got to have those conversations. And are the Chris Harrises of the world, are they completely disingenuous, or do they believe that there are certain things that are there things that they believe that I believe that we can agree on? And I think that there is common ground. There's more common ground than we allow ourselves to paint.
I actually agree with that, and I've had a couple interactions with Chaz Moore and Chris Harris in person. They've been relatively pleasant.
Yeah,
they're pleasant people. Even the people that do like some of the organizing, the block walking for Kassar. I even met Kassar. Really pleasant, very pleasant interactions.
Oh,
the people that like go to City Hall that are there, that are in the forefront dictating the policies that are at the top of the chain, are like very smart, very nice, very. I'm not going to call them reasonable people, but they're charismatic people who are very easy to, like, you could have a beer with them and talk with them and have fun hanging out with them. And they're very charismatic, sociable people. The problem that you're going to deal with are their foot soldiers. Mm-hmm. And there's got to be a way, and you are going to have to deal with these people at some point while you get elected, during your campaign, and maybe for 4 years after your campaign. And there's got to be a balance between listening to people's concerns and empathizing with how people feel, working with them, while also not capitulating to these people at all. Because once they see weakness and they see that you capitulate, they become sharks. They become sharks in the water who smell blood, and they are going to go after you relentlessly until there's no more blood to drain.
Yeah, that's fair. And I would never. I don't think the capitulation is necessary in negotiation or in meeting people or mediating a cause. But I think there's this MIT study that I love that basically shows that when you engage with someone with your ideas and theirs, if they got chocolate for ideas and you got peanut butter, you get your chocolate on their peanut butter and vice versa. So I'm an advocate. If they will engage with me in any type of way, then there's room to convince them, and I believe that.
Yeah. I also think use the camera. It's the best weapon in the world. If ever you feel like you're getting unjustly attacked or being unjustly bombarded with things, document it. Be fair and document it and put it out there and show everyone how you are responding to these documentation, these allegations. And understand too, man, this is not a career. This is not a career for you. You're doing an act of service that you'll be doing for 4 years, maybe 8, and then afterwards, you're a regular human being. And
I really appreciate that.
A lot of politicians, even like Mackenzie Kelly, I think they've forgotten about it.
It's amazing, you see it with judges or any number. Like the minute they get behind that bench, that robitis sets in, and I'm very intent on, if I find myself in office, making sure that doesn't happen.
They forget about it. Mackenzie's a nice lady, but she really enjoys being a member of the political establishment. She likes being on television. I could just tell. She likes going to cocktail parties. She likes the feeling of being important.
It is tough to have this process not change you. I feel
it is very tough, right? And then, I think that's one of the big things to understand as an elected official. Like, this is temporary. You're there for a couple of years, and then afterwards you're back to being a normal person. So you got to do everything you can to try to make your life better. For yourself when you become a normal person.
Well, but I mean, it is service. I got to try to figure out everything I can to make everyone else's life better here during that 4 years.
You got to do your best. Daniel, how do we get a hold of you?
Well, you can reach me on Twitter, betsforda. You can call me directly, 512-931-4206. That's my cell.
You have a website? What's your Instagram?
Yeah, betsforda is the website as well. I think it's also betsforda.
You think
Instagram.
You should know your Instagram. Come on, dude.
You're
going to be you have to communicate and get 161,000 people to change how they vote. You should know. You should be on top of it.
It's betsforda.
All right. Daniel, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, Alex. I really appreciate it.